allegedly had a glaring need at the quarterback position. They go with someone way off the radar in James Carpenter. Tom, was it the fact that there was not a lot of value at that position? Why did they go away from a quarterback?
I don't understand. This is one of those situations where whether it's a scout, whether it's a general manager, falls in love with a player. Whether it's in someone that fits a need or someone that's not. And with the amount of talent they still have on the board, the quarterbacks, as we mentioned, so even some of the other offensive guards like Rodney Hudson out of Florida State, to pass up these guys to go after Carpenter, Alabama, yes, a solid player, multiple-year starter at Alabama, but to take that over some of the potential of that position, the value, I don't understand it.
Yeah, a little confusing out of Pete Carroll, one of his first drafts since he's been back. So maybe, he's just working out the kinks.
He's rusty. He's rusty.
He's a little rusty, clearly, something like that. As I said earlier, though, if you're looking to make your rushing game better, you look for interior line, and passing, you look for exterior linemen. So went with the guard position, must have been the best interior lineman on Seattle's board for them to go ahead and pass up, as Tom said, some prospects that were definitely higher up the list than James Carpenter, but clearly drafting to help out their running game, which was a good move for Seattle. I'm wondering if they're planning on trading up in the next rounds or what they're going to do about their quarterback need. Maybe Charlie Whitehurst is the guy for Pete Carroll, which should worry Seattle fans out there, but clearly not sold on the quarterbacks that were still on the board.
Well, do you think teams just fall in love with the guy, and we can talk so much about Rodney Hudson being the best guard and maybe a Karimi moving to guard, but at the end of the day, teams have their guy, Tom.
Absolutely, and their teams, when they do, is they obviously rank their big board, which you 1 through 10 million, whatever it is, available prospects, and then they rank by needs. They have whether it's you need offensive linemen, you rank your top offensive linemen. It's kind of like what we did. They obviously have Carpenter up much higher than we did. It's one of those situations where a guy falls in love with someone and they make the pick. They'll have to live in it and see how it turns out. But arguably, they did make the playoffs, but they could be third best talent-wise in their own division.
Guys, let's jump over to Studio A real quick. It was surprising to us here in Studio B. We know it's got to be surprising in Studio A.
Well, see, we're in the studio, and we're trying to figure out who this guy even is. I mean, what's your reaction to this?
I don't know, man. He's not in my phone book. I have no idea who this guy is. I was thinking they're going to take Andy Dalton, the red-headed wonder, make Andy, our own one-on-one sports Andy Harris, happy. But they didn't. They took this guy nobody's heard of. And I guess those in Seattle are like crying in the rain right now because it's a pretty bad pick.
We're really baffled by this one, guys. I mean, you've been saying it. We don't know where this pick came from. We're just as taken back as you guys are.
I'm baffled that someone isn't in Adam Lawson's phone book. That's probably the biggest shocker of the evening. James Carpenter, sorry, buddy, you must be a real loser. Now on the clock at the 26th pick, the terrorizing Baltimore Ravens.
One of the proudest franchises in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens finished the 2010 season with a record of 12-4. But the difference in this season was a threatening offense orchestrated by head coach John Harbaugh and engineered by a rising star at the quarterback position. But Baltimore's regular season success was halted in the second round of the playoffs at the hands of a far too familiar foe. The approaching 2011 season looks to be bright as the defensive studs Lewis, Reed, and Nada are back and hungry for a title. Who will be the missing piece for a Super Bowl run in Baltimore?
The Ravens with a Super Bowl in the past decade, but clearly missing one more piece to try to get back to the promised land. Let's look at the best 5 available guys that may help them do that. Daquan Bowers, this was a guy 2 months ago people were talking about as potential #1 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. How the mighty have fallen. Brooks Reed, a workhorse of a guy, at the second best player left on the board. Stephen Paya, Billy's guy, there at #3. Justin Houston, a guy who can rush the passer from Georgia. And 5, Muhammad Wilkerson, someone else who could provide value to the Ravens. Where do you think the Ravens have to go here as a team need, Tom?
To Billy's dismay, they're not going to take Stephen Paya. I'm sorry. He just doesn't fit.
Not going to happen.
But this situation, once again, team's going to draft by value. You guys like Daquan Bowers staring you right in the face. I think Brooks Reed in a 3-4 system would really be a good pick here outside playing that rush linebacker. But I could also see Muhammad Wilkerson, a guy with the versatility to play maybe a little end, tackle when they go a hybrid situation.
Yeah.
The Baltimore Ravens love big defensive linemen, especially at D-end. They're in a 3-4 scheme. A good guy that they've been falling in love with is Cameron Hayward, who's not on the top 5 available, but a good defensive end, a big defensive end.
Is he from Ohio State?
He happens to be from Ohio State, Joey.
Homer alert.
On the other side of the ball, Baltimore was a playoff team. They think they're a Super Bowl contender, and yet they had the 22nd ranked offense last year. Joe Flacco needs a few more weapons. They're a little one-dimensional in running back right now, which you can't really do in the NFL anymore. You need that 2 running back system, and Willis McGahee pretty past his prime, so you wonder if they're going to try and get someone there. Also, when it comes to wide receiver, getting old. Derek Mason tried to retire last year, and they were able to bring him back. So you wonder if they're going to try and go offensive specialist, but with so many defensive players, again, still on the board, you think that a team that has already made the playoffs will go best.
But Billy, you mentioned Joe Flacco. What a great selection for them a couple of years ago.
Sure.
Let's take a look at the Baltimore Ravens draft history. 2007, it was Ben Grubbs, the guard. 2008, it was Joe Flacco. He wasn't the Matt Ryan of the draft, but at 18, definitely represented a great value. 2009, what better story than Michael Orr, the tackle from Ole Miss. And 2009, the injury-plagued Sergio Kindle, linebacker from Texas. Let's now turn to Joe Bruno. Joe, you've been hitting up the best campus draft parties all evening long. What do you have for us now?
Yeah, it's easy. Gabe Corelli.
All right, now I'm here with Jimmy Smith on Moffitt's second floor. Jimmy, who do the Ravens need?
I think we need like an old lineman or a cornerback, but right now we got Jimmy Smith from Colorado. I'm liking that one. I'm really liking that one.
Ironically, we're talking to Jimmy Smith, and he recommends that the Ravens select Jimmy Smith. Guys, I'm going to toss it back to you now in the studio as we await the Ravens pick.
Yet another big surprise. Jimmy Smith likes Jimmy Smith. That reminds me how much I miss dorm living, by the way, Joe. You're doing a great job out there. Keep it up, man. Let's throw it over now to Greg and Kurt. Going to talk a little bit more about the Baltimore Ravens right on the precipice of greatness.
Well, Joey, the Baltimore Ravens, as you mentioned, were very close to making it further into the playoffs, getting back to the Super Bowl that they oh so cherish, but ran into their familiar rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kurt, there's a tremendous rivalry building between these two teams. Is this the best rivalry in the NFL?
You know, I think it is. I think it has to be. It's two smash-mouth football teams going at it. They both love to pound the rock. They love to run the ball. They both have stellar defenses. It's one of the most fun football games to watch all year long.
Absolutely. I think that it has moved now to the top. It's past anything in the NFC East. It's past Jets, Patriots. I love being able to watch these two defenses play smash-mouth football and just bang on each other. It's good, old, hard, classic football.
Which is great to watch. It's always fun to watch two teams that play the same style, want to do the same thing to each other, go out there and try to run through each other. It's great to watch. A lot of contact, a lot of hitting. It's always fun. And I think the Jets-Patriots rivalry is a lot of blowing up, a lot of media done. This is two teams that want to beat each other. It's fantastic to watch.
So now looking draft-wise, I know the guys at the main table talked about it a little bit, but the Ravens weren't able to get past the Steelers, as I mentioned, in the playoffs. What can they do to maybe strengthen their roster so that they can get past the Steelers if they had to meet them again in the postseason?
See, now I'm disagreeing with the guys at the front desk. I'd love to hear what they have to say about this, but I'm going Gabe Carmini, offensive tackle from Wisconsin. I'm glad you agree with me. I think they need someone to help protect Flacco, keep building holes for the running backs. I really think this is a great pick right now. There's no wide receivers worth picking at this point.
Absolutely. Wide receiver is a need for the Ravens, but we're in agreement. Carmini right now for the Ravens. Guys, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think it's Karimi, but that's okay. We all make mistakes, most especially myself. Guys, let's talk about this a little bit more. We all love the Baltimore Ravens-Pittsburgh Steelers rivalry. That is one of the greatest rivalries, as they said, in all of sports. But what the Ravens need to do to take the upper hand in that rivalry, Tom?
Well, think about a Pittsburgh-Baltimore matchup. It's all about in the trenches. It's about winning that line play, whether it's up front, offensively, defensively. It's about winning those battles. And that's why I see a guy like Gabe Karimi being a great pickup for the Ravens right here. Guy can come in right tackle, 6'7", 300-plus pounds, physical guy. I still think Baltimore's going to go defense. As you mentioned, Hayward, an Ohio State guy, maybe could be the pushing force over there. Baltimore's got to bulk up those front lines, though.
Tom, we have to update something real quick. The Baltimore Ravens have just been skipped, and the Kansas City Chiefs are now on the clock. Shades of the Minnesota Vikings a few years ago. Let's move to the Chiefs real quick. What do they need possibly that they might be able to steal from the Baltimore Ravens here?
Well, you look at Kansas City, it's the same situation, 3-4 defense. There's still some guys there. Maybe a guy like Daquan Bowers, a big end, could play versatility of 4-3-3-4, best player available. A guy like Jimmy Smith still on the board. Situation where best player available. Kansas City, they did trade back. Maybe there's a guy who's still there.